Hi everyone, I wanted to show you a school repaint that I did. I took this really cheap Halloween decoration, and although at the time I didn't mind the fact it was gold, because I keep it sort of out permanently so I can use it as a drawing reference, I didn't just want this gold skull hanging around. I wanted to actually make it look better. So what I've decided to do was antique it, and to take it back to a normal sort of almost skull type colour. So first things first was to paint the whole thing with white acrylic paint. This got rid of the gold and also gave me the base for doing the repaint. Like, this gave me the base for the antiquing. If you do dry brushing, you tend to start off with the darkest colour, whereas if you're doing antiquing, you tend to start off with the lightest colour. So I decided to paint it white, as obviously bones are pretty much white. And it took, in the end, I think it was about 3 layers or so, something like that. And what I did is I just built up the layers. So the first layer I put on quite thickly and then used my brush to repeatedly go over it to make sure it was nice and smooth. Then the second and third coats were a bit more watered down so that they would go into the little nooks and crannies and any little gaps and things. So as you can see here, what I'm doing first is concentrating on the front of the skull, and the reason for that is by concentrating on that front part, I had the back part to hold on to so that I could hold on to it and secure it while I was painting. Excuse the noise, I've just got to shut my curtains, I'm being blinded by the sunlight. It's typical. It was going dark, like in my studio, so I opened the curtains. Second I turned the microphone on to start recording, it went sunny and I couldn't see. Anyway, so as you can see, I'm concentrating on the front part of the skull. You can see the first coat is a little bit streaky, but that's no major issue. That's something I can sort out by just doing a couple of thin layers over the top. And what I did in between layers, like in between the thick layer and the 2 thinner layers, is I used my hairdryer to dry off the acrylic. That way the second layer didn't lift off the first layer of paint. So as you can see there how thick the paint is, I've just basically got the paint straight out the tube and painted the skull with it. Then once the 3 layers were dry, I took a baby wipe that was soaked in the paint water and in some really watered down black acrylic paint, and what you do is you rub over the top of the white with that, and it dulls down the white, as you can see there, and it gives it sort of a slightly more realistic bone colour, and it goes in all those little nooks and crannies and really brings out the detail. So as you can see on the forehead where I hadn't done it, it was quite white, and then going over it with the baby wipe and then with the tissue sort of just knocks the edge off that bright white and makes it look a bit better, a bit more sort of older, a bit older. And then it's just a case of doing that all over the skull until you're happy with it. Went over the whole thing about 3 times, and now it's dry. It does look a little on the grey side compared to the other skulls I did, but that's okay, no problem there. I can always lighten that up later on. Do bear in mind that obviously acrylic paint dries darker than when it goes on wet. Only slightly, but it is enough to make a difference. I mean, looking at the skull now, it is more grey than I probably would have wanted, but I'm still pleased with it. I think it still looks a lot better than the gold, so never mind. And then what I did is I took a brush in the little crevices and areas around the teeth, because going over it with the cloth it was missing that area completely, so it was making it so the teeth had like a white outline which looked weird. And what I did as well is use the brush to go over those areas with cracks and with suture lines, just to make those stand out a lot more as well. I found that one on the cheekbone stood out really well once I'd gone over the inside of it with a bit more black paint. So as you can see, I applied a slightly thicker layer of black paint over the top, and then when I wiped that off, that stood out a lot better. I didn't mind the cracks that were in it, that were made into the sculpt, so I wanted to keep those, and obviously the suture lines would be there anyway on a regular skull, so I kept those. And as you can see, when you've applied that paint into the grooves and then wiped it off, it does look a lot better and it does stand out a lot more. Now with this bit, the way I did this bit, as you can see, you've got like 2 bands of colour, and I did find that when I wiped it off with a tissue, you could still see where the bands of colour were. Well, don't worry, if you get that, all you have to do is go over it again with the wet baby wipe, with the paint water and the watered down black acrylic paint on it. That just blends out that edge and just makes it so it doesn't stand out anymore, as you can see. So it gets rid of that sort of banding effect. And by keep going over the skull and like applying paint, wiping it off, applying paint, wiping it off, you can get it so it looks a bit more of a even colour anyway. And on the other side, I decided to apply some paint into that groove. And the reason I went over it with the baby wipe first was just to make sure I didn't get any of that banding effect. Then I repainted the inside of the eye sockets, but what I did this time is I painted further back in the eye socket. On the original, when it was originally painted, they'd painted quite close to the front, so it didn't look as deep. Whereas by applying the black paint further in the eye socket and not right up to the edge, it makes the bone look thicker, and it also makes it look like it's more of a recess. So it makes those eye sockets look deeper. Again, it just makes it look a lot better. Then I took a fine brush and went into the nose area. There is a little bit of texture, and there's like the septum line or whatever it is in the centre that's modelled on this. I will go over that and make it stand out a bit more in the future, but for now I just painted the inside of the nose black just to keep it nice and simple. And I just used the small brush to go over any details I'd missed, and just to make anything that I wanted to really stand out a lot more. And then any sort of little smudges and things are blended out by going over it with the baby wipe and then going over it with the tissue. And then here I decided that I wanted that crack on the eye to stand out more, so I went over it with some of the black acrylic paint with the fine brush this time. That way I can get deeper into that little groove and make it stand out even more. And then did a general wipe over the whole skull to try and help blend out any edges, get rid of any sort of lines and marks, you know, just make it more of an even colour. And I did the same again with a small brush, and I went in the cracks, you know, the suture lines, to make those look darker and deeper. And again I used the baby wipe first to sort of blend out the colour that was outside those cracks, and then use the tissue to wipe that off. And it just makes it easier to remove if I've got that gone over it with the baby wipe first. And as you can see, they look nice and deep, and at the same time I haven't got that sort of tide mark effect. Then once you've got this far, it's just a case of going around and see if there's anywhere on the skull you've missed and trying to even out the colour a little bit. So what I did is I actually dipped the tissue in a little bit of water just to get a more even coat of paint over the whole skull, just to help blend everything in and finish it all off. And then it's just a case of going underneath and making sure that underneath the jaw is painted how you want it. Make sure you've not missed any bits, because they'll stand out like a sore thumb, because obviously they'll be bright white. And once you've done all that, you've got what looks a lot more like a skull compared to the gold one. And also, oh yeah, you can use that patting motion if you want to add a little bit of texture as well. It just adds different textures to the skull and just makes it look a bit more interesting. And then when you're happy with it, that's it, it's done. Hope you liked this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.